Bulubinaka, good evening and welcome to For the Record. The journey to the elections 2014 in September is fast becoming interesting, as various political parties have begun to make known who's going to lead their parties and their new policies. Now, the oldest political party in the country recently appointed a new leader, and this evening we are very happy to say that he joins us for this evening. Welcome to the show, Professor Biman Prasad.
Thank you, Budeli. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Now, 5 years ago, did you think you'd be the leader of the National Federation Party?
Well, I've been associated with the National Federation Party. As you know, I contested the 99 general elections under the leadership of Mr. Jairam Reddy. And I am very, very excited and pleased that the party has put the confidence in me as its leader for these very, very crucial elections in September.
Now, it's interesting that you've taken up the leadership. You had a job at the University of the South Pacific, quite prominent, and you take up the leadership of NFP.
I think the country is at a critical juncture. This is a great country. It should have been a great country already, but we are going through a very critical period. We haven't had democracy in this country since 2006, and the NFP's enduring values of democracy, human rights, freedom, and our belief in the progress and development of this nation rests in the freedom and democracy, a framework within which we can advance the interest of all the people of this country. And I believe that this election, even though we've had a constitution which has been forced onto us, unlike the 1997 constitution, and probably, let me say this, that the 1997 constitution is, in my view, the only constitution which had the unanimous support of all stakeholders in this country. However, we will leave the question of the constitution. We now have a constitution. We are going into an election under that constitution, and this party is focused on fighting this election. As for me, leaving the job at the University of the South Pacific is said. I liked working at the university. I liked my students. But I think at this point in time, this country needs the support and the vision of people who can take this country forward in a democratic framework. And the National Federation Party has given me this opportunity. I consider it to be an honor and a privilege to lead this party. And NFP has always played very important roles at critical junctures of this country, whether it be independence, whether it be the review of the 1990 Constitution, whether it be formulation of the 1997 Constitution. And I believe NFP will once again, at this critical juncture, provide the leadership to this country.
Okay, we'll get back to the Constitution, but you mentioned the elections, 2006. Now, what is on the minds of many Fijians is, okay, the results from the previous elections wasn't too good for the National Federation Party. What are you going to do different? What is this approach for 2014?
That's correct, Pideli, and I see that journalists actually like to remind us all the time that we didn't win a seat since 1999. But they also forget that under the previous systems, the NFP had a significant number of votes as a party. And we believe that under this system, under the proportional representation, if we had that system before, we would have had seats in Parliament in 1999, in 2001, and 2006. This is going to be a different election. This is going to be an election which will not be about history, although history is important. It is not going to be about what we see now. It is going to be about the future of this country. And I think people in this country are looking for leaders, looking for political parties with integrity, with honesty, and a history of supporting democracy. And NFP is the only party, in my view, which has never supported a coup. We condemned the coup in 1987. I personally fought against the coup in 1997. I led the Fiji Youth and Students League in support of democracy. We condemned the coup in 2000. We condemned the coup in 2006 because this party, and I personally believe that Fiji cannot progress with political instability. We need democracy, we need stability, we need leaders and parties who can provide consistent policies for the future of this country. And I, as the leader of the National Federation Party, I can assure you that I'm going to lead a new NFP, reminding ourselves about the enduring values of the party and the values that some of our finest leaders in this country, who led NFP in the past, provide us with. So that is why I think NFP is going to be a force to reckon with. I think the people have realized. I mean, the feedback that I've received since taking over the leadership on March 29th has been tremendous. I was in the north, I was in the west. I've had a lot of support from young, educated people, farmers. They are fed up. People are fed up in this country with this idea of instability.
Okay, where is that support? What type of support in terms of age and how many, percentage of females?
I can give you an example. At the convention, there were close to about 50 young people. This is
50 young people.
50 young people, who had the NFP T-shirt, who were very excited. And since that convention, and since my speech and our president, Tupou Downing-Dallow's speech, there's been a lot of excitement amongst the young people. Not only amongst the young people. I was in Lambasa. I went right up to Vanikoro. I met farmers. I met people in the market. I think people are looking at new leadership, and they're looking at NFP as a party which can provide a new direction. And this is why I keep saying that I and Tupou Downing-Dallow are going to lead a new NFP. Downing-Dallow and Prasad combination, or Prasad and Downing-Dallow combination, is going to be the combination that people should watch for the next general election.
On that note, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back on For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record, and this evening we're joined by the new leader of the National Federation Party, Professor Biman Prasad. Now, just before the break, you went on about the new leadership of NFP, Downing-Dallow and Prasad, taking on the country, and we've talked about the support. You've talked about, yes. So is it the youth that you're targeting?
Well, we are targeting every section of the population, and this will be reflected very, very clearly in our manifesto. I said this in my speech. We'll consult everyone, including the youth, women, people with disability, farmers, and our manifesto and what we're going to offer to the people of this country will be for everyone and every section of the population. So we are very, very mindful of that.
Now, before the break, we also mentioned a little bit about the history of NFP. It's rich in Fiji, and even the previous leaders of National Federation Party had, made submissions to government about the one vote purpose and policy for elections. Now, is this something the National Federation Party supports in this election?
Well, as I said on AINA the other day, that the National Federation Party, you were correct, always wanted one person, one vote, common role. And indeed, the National Federation Party's submission to the Gai Commission reflected that as well. And so we've made this very clear. Of course, the circumstances under which this is now included in the 2013 Constitution remains a matter for discussion and contention. But as I said,
But you do agree?
No. I mean, we agree on the one person, one vote. But if you talk about the whole constitution and the way in which the constitution was imposed on the people of Fiji, that's another matter. That's a matter for discussion at some point later. But right now, the NFP is focused on returning Fiji to democracy, and this is why we have decided that we're going to fight this election. We're going to fight this election with honesty, integrity, and with a manifesto that will offer people a real choice. And as I said in my speech, and I laid down a number of broad policy platforms, ranging from addressing poverty, unemployment, economic policies, farmers, land, number of issues. And I also said in that speech that this election is not going to be about what we have seen in the last few years. It is not going to be about 2014 budget. It is going to be about the future of this country. It is going to be about returning Fiji to democratic rule. And it will be about consistency in what political parties can offer as part of their manifestos and policies. It will also be about integrity of leaders and what leaders have said in the past, what they are saying now, and what they are saying for the future of this country. I think people in this country this time will judge that, will analyze that very, very carefully. And NFP, and as a leader of the NFP, I am very, very mindful that we are not going to mislead our people with our policies, with our intentions. We're going to be very, very clear, transparent, open. And this is why, as a party, we've been insisting that we should have a very, very free and fair environment and for the election, so that people are able to express their views openly and without fear, so that we end up with a election which is free and fair, and the results which will be acceptable, and results which will give stability to this country and confidence for the future of this country.
When will the party manifesto be made available?
We are in the process of, we've actually got a draft already. We are in the process of consulting with our branch officials, stakeholders. We have asked different stakeholders, in some cases to give us what they think, we should include in our manifesto. And so that is all being done. We've got a national team. We've got some international experts as well who would be helping us to put the manifesto together, so that, as I said earlier, we want to put a manifesto which will have credibility, which will be honest, which will reflect the aspirations and the wishes of our people and what they want for the future. And as the NFP's motto for this election says, our people's future. That is what we will focus on, our people's future. And everything that we do between now and the election would be about our people's future.
All right, people's future. So obviously a huge part of that would be education.
Exactly.
And which part of, the government's present educational policy, can we talk a little bit about what you would make?
Look, we commend government for some of its policies, like increasing education grant, free education. Fee-free education is not a new thing. It was always there. I actually never paid school fees in primary school or secondary school. We had this thing called remission of fees. But there are a lot of issues in the education system that we are going to address. The last education commission, Pideli, that we had in this country was in 1999. It's almost 12 or 13 years now. NFP in government, we will institute a commission, education commission. There are a lot of issues in the system. We have seen a lot of changes in the last 6 or 7 years, and these changes have been brought about, without consultation, without understanding the impact on quality. And so NFP in government will have a commission, education commission set up. We will try and look at the causes and will inquire on some of the impacts of the current policies, so that we provide quality education. On the scholarship, We again commend government for bringing this toppers scheme. NFP will maintain that toppers scheme, and as I said before, there is one problem with the current scheme. There are a lot of students, poor students. Let's say a student from Nandongo Secondary or Penang Sangam High School in Reki Reki, coming from a very poor family, gets 280 marks out of 400. That's a damn good mark for a student from a poor family. Now, under this scheme, they are being forced to take loans. We will ensure that we will have a means-tested scholarship for those students who have marks between 250 and 300 who are not going to make up the topper scheme, and we will provide them with scholarships because these are poor kids. You don't want to burden them and their parents with a loan in the future. So, and for those who have got loans in 2014 but would qualify under that means-tested scheme that we're going to institute, we will convert those loans into scholarship.
Okay. On that note, we'll wrap up this segment. Stay with us. We've got another, interesting segment to come with the new leader of the National Federation Party on For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record, and we continue our discussion on the policies of the National Federation Party with its new leader, Professor Biman Prasad. Now, you mentioned in your speech at the when you were announced as the leader, that, let me quote, the poor economic performance has resulted in rising poverty and rising unemployment. The biggest killer for our people has been the rising prices of food and utilities. And it said that when it took over power, this government promised to reduce VAT from 12.5% and to 10%, but instead it raised it to 15%. Now, what will you do? What will the National Federation Party take on this approach?
Thank you, Budeli. That's a very good question. Very important issue for the people of this country and for the poor of this country. That is correct. When this government came into power, they said that they were going to reduce the VAT from 12.5% to 10%. Instead, they increased it to 15%. We had a devaluation
of the dollar.
And there are some other deliberate policies like raising of import duties on a number of key food items. And if you look at the statistics, this is Bureau of Statistics, this is not my statistics. If you analyze the rise in price over the last 5 or 6 years, in fact, food prices have gone up by 60%. Utility, lighting and heating, which means electricity bills, power bills, if you put all that together, it went up by 60%. So what we are saying is that government has put a lot of burden on the poor by some of its deliberate policies. When we get into government, we will reduce the VAT immediately from 15 to 10%. I know some media organizations and Radio Nautarang in particular, they said they are simply calculating that there will be a reduction of revenue by 33%. Now, it doesn't work that way. I mean, people have to understand that. I think they need some economic advice as to what will happen. We are also saying, and I said that in my speech, that NFP in government, our ambition would be to grow the economy between 5 to 6% within 2 years. And a reduction in VAT to 10% does not necessarily mean a reduction in the revenue by exactly 33%, which will be the reduction in VAT. Right. We will have, as we will put down in our manifesto, very, very clear policies as to how we'll make the shortfall. But the important thing is that we want to put that $200 or more million back into the pockets of the poor, so that the poor have the purchasing power, have the ability to go and buy that basket of goods, which will provide them the basic necessities in the 3 meals. And what we are saying now is that poor are struggling to put food on the table, to put that basket, which would be a balanced basket, which will include milk, which will include all the other, food items that they need on a daily basis. And this is what our ambition is, this is what our plan is, that we want to give immediate relief to the poor. You mentioned unemployment.
Yes.
That is a very, very serious issue, and it is a serious issue because the economy has not grown as I said, it's grown by slightly over 1% in the last 6 or 7 years. I accept that the economy has recovered much better in the last 3 years, and some of that credit, goes to the government. We accept that. But the fact remains that there is very high levels of unemployment. And I'll give you some statistics. Between 2010 and 2012, 26,000 people registered at the National Employment Center, and only 4,000 got jobs in the formal sector. Recently, the figure went to 30,000. Our economic policy is going to look at how we can promote small business. Small businesses in this country have been burdened, let alone the bigger business, have been burdened on all kinds of legislations, fees, charges, increase in stamp duty. And small businesses are very, very important in creating employment. Even those, roadside stalls, they create employment. They have 1 or 2 people working for them. So our approach would be to promote, inclusive economic growth policies, so that we create, maximum number of jobs. A lot of people who are moving away from the rural areas, and this is another thing. I mean, there is lack of confidence among the farmers in this country. We will make sure that we suggest and we will implement, consistent, transparent agricultural policies, which will link farmers to the export market, which will provide them with consistent income. And therefore, we want to bring consistency in the overall economic policy. And we are going to provide a level playing field for all the businesses. I acknowledge that government has done some reforms. Some of them are commendable, like, the deregulation of the telecommunications sector. But there are equally large number of reform issues that this government has not addressed. Even within the telecommunications sector, we will undertake further reforms so that we can reduce the prices. So, as you will see in our manifesto, and we can talk about this in another show, get into a little bit more details as to what exactly NFP has in terms of accelerating economic growth through deliberate economic policies. The other final point I want to make is we will look at our local investors, our local businesses very, very carefully. I believe that these people who have been in this country, who have invested with loyalty, with confidence, have not had the same kind of privileges as we give to some of our foreign investors, and have not had the kind of treatment that they need. So we will be looking at reforms that will address all these inconsistencies.
Okay, can you state one of those inconsistencies?
For example, if you look at the tax concessions for new investors, let's say that a local investor which has been in this country undertakes a completely new project, invest millions of dollars, say in Banua Lebu, that investor will not get a tax-free status. Whereas, somebody from overseas, a foreign investor comes in and does the same thing, gets a tax-free status, or gets different kinds of concessions. So we will look at key sectors of the economy, particularly agriculture and manufacturing, and we will design policies so that we encourage our local businessmen, people who have confidence in this country, people who didn't run away after 87 or 2000 or 2006, and who want to progress this country through their own investments. We will look after them.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but very quickly, we're headed to the election. So I'm going to ask you this. What is your definition of democracy?
Democracy is having a free and fair election, putting to the people your policies and your programs, get reported free and fairly by the media, and it's the people's choice of who they want to elect in government, and they expect that government to be respected by all the state institutions in the country, including the military. And I'm very happy, and we welcome the assurance by the new commander of the RFMF, Brigadier General Moses Sertikoy Tonga, that the army will remain apolitical and that it will respect the results of the 2013 general elections. That is a big assurance that will bring confidence. What we are asking for is a free and fair election, free and fair coverage by the media in this country for our elections.
Thank you very much. The new leader of the National Federation Party, Dr. Biman Prasad, whom you'll see more of right here on For the Record. Thank you again for joining us this evening. For questions, you can send them to fortherecord@fbc.com.fj, and we'll talk to you again on our next show next week.